Hello there, my name's Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm showing you the second charity quilt I made from a quilt kit from 2002 that I got at a garage sale for $6. Now here is what I have left from the kit after making the first project. For the project today, I do want to use 10-inch squares. I took a nice long look at everything in black and white coloring so I could see what was light, what was dark. In the end, I decided to use these blues and these tans. And I'm going to grab just a little bit of red from my stash to make this quilt. I am making one block and one block only. But as you can see here, just turning the block a different way, you can create all kinds of little patterns. So I'm going to use the blue and the tan for the main part of the block, and I'm just going to cut some skinny strips of the red for the accent color. Now my blues and my tans, I'm going to cut down those 10-inch squares. So if you're using yardage, that's going to save you a little bit, but I already have a stack of strips left over, so my last project for this quilt kit will probably be something to do with those strips. For my 6 block by 8 block layout, I'm going to need 48 pieces of blue and beige, each measuring 5 by 7.5 inches. And as I said, I'm going to be cutting down 10-inch squares to get those pieces, and I'm going to need 24 10-inch squares of each color. Then I need to cut some 5-inch by 2.5-inch pieces of red, and I'm going to need a total of 96 pieces that measure 2.5 inches by 5 inches. The first thing I'm going to do is take that lovely ½ yard of red fabric. I'm going to go ahead and cut that to the sizes that I need. Yeah, I know it's not going to be enough. I need about 2/3 of a yard, and this is only ½ a yard. I'm going to make myself a straight edge on one side of this. I'm lining up my ruler on the fold on the left, and then I'm just cutting that straight edge, and then I'll be able to use that straight edge to cut my 2.5-inch strips. When I ran out of that fabric, I went ahead and cut the other red fabrics into 2.5-inch strips. Once I had that done, I cut those strips into 5-inch lengths, and I stacked them up in groups of 10 so that I could keep track, knowing that I needed 96. Next, it was time to work on my 10-inch squares. I did take the time to count the tan squares and the blue squares. I didn't have enough of either one. I'm going to cut what I have and then show you what I did. I stacked these up 5 deep, then I cut off 2.5 inches off of one side, and that's going to go into that pile for the very last quilt from this kit. Next, I just turned the unit sideways, so it measures 10 inches by 7.5, and I'm going to cut it in half long ways at 5 inches. So now I have 10 pieces of tan that measure 5 inches wide and 7.5 inches long. I need a total of 48 of those pieces. Now this may be something new to some of you, but have you ever used the reverse side of fabric? I have these medium fabrics from the kit, and guess what? The back of them is tan. You can kind of see a little bit of the red through, but overall they read the same color as the others, so I'm going to use as many of those as I need to get my 48 individual pieces. For the blue, I grabbed some scrap yardage from my stash and I cut those pieces individually by 7.5 by 5 inches. I did not need to cut those 10 inches first and then cut them back down. And all the leftovers from this stash fabric also went into the pile of leftover strips that are going to be in the very last quilt that I make from this. After cutting up all my fabric, here's what I've got. I've got 48 blue pieces, 48 tan pieces, and 96 of my red pieces. It's time to sit down at the sewing machine and start chain piecing. Once I had this first round completed, my next step is just to take a section with tan and a section with blue. I'm going to flip them so the red is on the opposite sides and stitch these down the middle. That will complete one block. I did not take the time to press these. You certainly could if you wanted to. I was able to just match at the beginning, match at the end. There's no seam in the middle that will match, so I'm really not too worried about anything here. Well, now that I've got the 48 blocks done, it gets a little more complicated. I know that I need 4 of these center focus blocks. They're mega blocks. So I'm going to take 4 of my blocks, put those together almost like a pinwheel shape, and I need 6 of those. So I'm going to do that first and make my center section sort of as a panel. Once I get those all stacked up 6 deep, I will set the rest of these blocks aside because those are going to be made into sort of a border. So I'm treating these blocks almost like 4 patches. I'm sewing the top 2 together first, then I'm sewing the stack of the bottom 2 together next, and then I will put those together, and the only thing I'm worried about matching here is the center seam between the blocks. I continued joining those mega blocks together until I had all 6 of them together for my center panel of this quilt. Now, if you like the way these pinwheel blocks look, you could make your whole quilt from this, but the way I designed it on the computer, I thought it would be cool to try and make the blue blocks go around the outside. Well, the blue side of the block. Now I know I need 4 across, so I'm going to do the 4 across first. So I'm going to stitch 2 sets of 4 blocks, and I'm going to line them all up the same way, so the blue is on one side and the tan is on the opposite side, and I'm going to attach those 2 strips of 4 to the top and the bottom of the panel I just finished. Now the way I'm putting these 2 blocks together, you can see that center seam, I do want that to match up if possible, so I am kind of nesting that middle seam there as I go. With those strips of 4 blocks done, it's time to attach those to the top and the bottom of this little panel I made myself. Now I want to make sure I am getting the tan side attached to the panel and the blue side up, because I want the blue to go all the way around the outside of the quilt. And the way these tan blocks are lining up, some of them there's a line to match up, some of them there is not, but I am just trying to match that seam between the blocks, and I'm not worrying too much about the other seams. Once I had the top and the bottom of the panel attached, then I needed to put more blocks together with the blue on the same side to make the sides of the quilt. So I needed 8 blocks for each side. At this point, the quilt was large enough that I did clip the sides of this quilt into place. I did both sides, and then I took the whole thing to the sewing machine and stitched both of these seams. And now it's time to take a look at the finished quilts laid out on the floor. I really love the way this looks like it has a center panel, and then the border is just made from the initial block. There's no different block for the border. And I do have to give my spouse a little credit here. He is the one that suggested the red accent fabric. I was trying to decide what color to pair up with the blue and the tan, and he suggested the red, and that was a good suggestion. If you've made it to the end here, I thank you for your support of my channel. I invite you to subscribe, click the like, and also you can click that little bell icon to get notified when I post new videos. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope to see you back again real soon.